All right, welcome to the first of its kind, world-changing manufacturers network. Lisa Ryan has her ears to the ground and her heart in the game. Get ongoing education and new connections right here with Lisa and the Manufacturers Network. Buckle your seat, listen, and spread the word. Here's Lisa.
Hey, it's Lisa Ryan. Welcome to the Manufacturers Network podcast. I'm excited to let you know that today we have not one guest, but two guests joining us today. First, we have Abby Wurzbach. Abby is a connector of people for those in the world of manufacturing, helping to provide resources for small and medium-sized manufacturers in South Central Pennsylvania. As president and founder of the Young Manufacturers Network, she gets to use her passion for creating community to help build a system of support, mentorship, and development for the next generation of manufacturing leaders. Andrew Lane joined ManTec in 2021 as a client relationship specialist dedicated to connecting ManTec clients to valuable resources and contacts while also developing new relationships with manufacturers in a 9-county region. Prior to joining ManTec, Andrew was working in the staffing industry, specializing in manufacturing companies. So Abby and Andrew, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. We're excited to be here.
All right, so I'm going to start with you, Abby. So share with us a little bit about your background and what led you to doing not only what you're doing with ManTec, but also with the Young Manufacturers Network.
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. Yeah, a little bit about my background. So I came into this industry a long way around, I would say. Started out in college as an education major, and eventually during college was COVID. And so I very quickly wanted to transfer out of that world, knowing that who knows what the world of education would look like post-pandemic. And so ended up switching to business, did a couple internships in some community development, some internships in retail, and none of those stuck. And so did a semester abroad and came back, and for the longest time wanted nothing to do with the manufacturing industry. My dad is actually a small manufacturer in York, Pennsylvania. And for the longest time was like, Dad, I don't want to do what you do. It's not my thing. And so just was really walking in the opposite direction, but came back from that semester abroad and was a broke college student and needed an internship. And so Dad's company was looking more and more appeasing. And so I was like, hey, do you need an intern for this last semester of school? And so he took me on staff, thankfully, thanks Dad, and I was his sales and marketing intern for that last semester of college and learned a lot about the technical sales side of things, ended up falling in love with this industry and the people and the technicality of it. And as I was getting ready to graduate, scrolling on LinkedIn of all places, and up came the Young ManTec popped up, and I was like, oh, this job looks pretty cool. We get to see cool things and how they're made and connect people. That sounds right up my alley. And so applied, and here we are about 10 months later into my career at ManTec as a business solutions specialist. What that means is basically I do outreach to manufacturing companies. I get to go into their facilities, see how things are made, and then connect them with resources that help them grow and get better. So it's a pretty fun job if you ask me personally, and I've definitely learned a lot over the past 10 months being on staff, as we're here to talk about the Young Manufacturers Network, obviously, and over the course of that 10 months just connected with friends from school, people in industry, and this constant conversation came up of, Abby, you're so young. You're this 22-year-old girl figuring it out as you go, and how are you doing it? Honestly, I don't really know. I'm just figuring out as I go is the best way to put it. But what came from that conversation was a lot of the times those who had a little bit more tenure than I did would say, hey, if I had a networking group or if I had something like this when I was your age, you're getting good experience now. I would have grown a lot faster than I did. And so that stuck with me. And that's how this idea of the Young Manufacturers Network came up. And so pitched it to Andrew. He hopped on, and that's kind of it. Now we're started. We're about 15 members strong. Our first event had over 30 people. And so we've just been chugging along since then. But yeah, that's how I've gotten here and where I'm at now.
Wonderful. And one thing I didn't ask you, I mentioned ManTec, but for those people who aren't familiar, can you let us know what ManTec is?
Yes, yeah, I'd be happy to. ManTec, we're a nonprofit organization, part of the National MEP Manufacturing Extension Partnership Network. We are a nonprofit dedicated to helping small and medium-sized manufacturing companies grow and get better. We're focused in 4 key focus areas: sales and marketing, workforce engagement, process improvement, and manufacturing technology. And we're just really there to be that first point of connection for a manufacturer when they have a question, want the answer to be, we don't know what to do here, let's call ManTec. Before they go to Google or wherever they might go to find someone to help, we're there to be that first point, and we're more than happy to connect them with the right size fit for them.
Wonderful. All right. That brings us over to you, Andrew. So, same question. Tell us about you and what led you to doing what you're doing with ManTec and especially the Young Manufacturers Network.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. So my background, my degree's in criminal justice. I was going to go the law enforcement route. I ended up working as a corrections officer for many years, and I did love the job and love helping people in that whole rehabilitation aspect within the correctional facility. But the schedule was very, very brutal on just any type of friends, relationships. My son at the time was very young, so I was working second shift. It just wasn't the best quality of life. Once he had started kindergarten, I knew that I wasn't going to really be involved in his life in the day-to-day just because our schedules were complete opposites at the time. So that is when I shifted out of the criminal justice world and landed a job in the staffing industry. So I did work for a staffing company for about 6 years, 5 to 6 years, that specialized in office professional and manufacturing type positions. Manufacturing has always been something I've been interested in just because there's so many different avenues and things you can do. The amount of just diverse career opportunities within the manufacturing field there's just tons. So being able to help manufacturers with staffing and understand their culture and understand more about manufacturing has always been great for me, just with seeing all the cool stuff that's constantly being made. Then I did see the ManTec position come open. I immediately jumped on and gravitated towards that because it was doing a lot of some of the similar stuff, but instead of helping just staff facilities in manufacturing, it was now segueing into just helping manufacturers grow and get better. As Abby said, targeting the small to medium-sized manufacturers that may not have resources readily available to them. We are there to help them grow and stay competitive against kind of the large scale, huge manufacturers that are out there. We want to keep manufacturing here in the United States. So for all the listeners out there in manufacturing, please don't hesitate to look up one of your local MEP centers, as they are all across the United States and here to help all manufacturers. And then, as Abby mentioned, we realize that there's a lot of these young professional networking groups that are out there in different counties and different types of industries. I know there's ones in real estate, there's ones in specific departments and industries, but we didn't really find many in the US that were geared towards just manufacturing. And as Abby shared with you, she's had a lot of connections and contacts that have said to her, I wish there was organizations like this when I was younger to help guide me. Abby came and expressed the idea to me about wanting to start a young manufacturers network to help those younger 21 to 40 age range people feel a place of belonging and have someone that they can network with and lean on if they need that. I thought it was a fantastic idea. And from there, we rolled with it. We got this whole thing up and running with sponsorships, websites, everything within about a 4 to 6 month period of time. And I would say that it's thriving right now. We have nothing but positive feedbacks. We had a 80% attendance rate with our first event that we had. As Abby mentioned, our room size was capped at 40. I think we had about 36, maybe 37 people that attended. So we almost had the entire room filled up, and it's just been great so far.
And why do you think that this is so important to have this kind of networking group for young manufacturing professionals?
Personally, I think it's just great because there's a lot of different avenues you can go down. You think about innovation and collaboration as a whole. So giving someone a space, the younger demographic sometimes tends to bring fresh perspectives and innovative ideas to the table. So having that networking group where like-minded people can come together and discuss those ideas, discuss any type of skill development that needs to happen with that, and as well just the whole entire adaption of technology. Younger professionals are a little more tech savvy than your typical industry veterans. So they're going to be more open to adopting new technologies. You hear Industry 4.0 is a very big thing. Now they're starting to talk about Industry 5.0, and they're still probably over half the manufacturers that haven't even started at 4.0 yet. Personally, I think that's why an organization like this is so great. And I know Abby's big thing, and I'll let her speak on the mentorship piece, is really something that can just help continue to grow the manufacturing community.
Yeah. For sure. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, oh, no, that's fine. I think that going into some of the skills. So, Abby, in your mind, what are some of the skills? What are the developments that you see not only now, but in the grand scheme of things in the future that you can really help these younger people get their foot in and most importantly, stay in the industry?
Yeah, for sure. Great. Andrew called it out as this technology piece is huge right now. We get to talk to a lot of manufacturers as part of our roles. And so I would say the biggest ones Andrew called out is technology is rapidly evolving. And then Lisa, you just called out the second of being that retention of talent. And so when we're looking at the Young Manufacturers Network, an organization like this is helping to upskill employees. Not only do they get access to discounts on ManTec trainings, but we also are going to be having lunch and learns for these people for members to take part in. If they're a member of the Young Manufacturers Network, there's going to be opportunities not just for professional development, but personal development as well. Our current membership base is pretty wide. We have people in HR, we have manufacturing engineers, we have tool and die makers, we have people in sales. And so when you look at our current membership base, that's a pretty wide range of folks to try to capture something professional development wise that's going to be able to hit in every single one of those categories. However, there are some, I don't want to call them quite soft skills, but I think skills that everyone needs when it comes to communication, especially communicating across generations. We have at least 4 generations in the workforce right now. And so when you take a look at that, how are you going to make sure that those in Gen Z millennials or early millennials are able to communicate with the boomers that are still in the workplace and Gen X? So that's a huge piece that I see that we're going to have a lunch and learn on moving forward that I think this group is going to help develop in young people. I think another huge one, we're having our first lunch and learn in July, and we're going to have a conversation on time management. That's something that's crucial for anybody, regardless of whether you're a project manager, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're in HR. There's not a lot of time, but there's a lot to be done in a short amount of time. And so if we can help young people manage their schedules and make sure that they do use their time wisely, it's going to be able to benefit not just them as a person, but the industry as a whole. And you also called out this other piece of retention. So not only are we developing skills in young people in manufacturing, but we're also helping to create community for young people. I went to York College of Pennsylvania, and I stayed here in York. I have family here in York, so I have a really great network of people. But I also have friends that I went to school with who were engineers and now work at a manufacturing facility. But they came from New Jersey and Maryland and out of other places out of state to the school. And building that foundational community can be tough. And it's going to end up impacting South Central Pennsylvania in the future as these folks go back to their hometowns after working maybe in the manufacturing industry for a year or two and not finding that network of people. And so when we look at how are we going to retain that talent, let's just make sure they have friends. Simply put, let's just make sure they have a group of people where they can go to. They can talk about work, and the people who are there are going to understand what they're talking about because they're in that industry every day. And so how can we use this network, not just to develop leaders with skills, but also to develop people who have networks that want to stay in this industry, want to stay in South Central Pennsylvania, and want to continue to impact manufacturing for years to come.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see a lot more with the associations that I speak in, a lot more women in events, women in manufacturing, women in material handling, women in HVAC, because there's a need for us to expand the people that we're bringing in, because we have this whole silver tsunami leaving the workforce as boomers are aging out and deciding to do other things with their lives. So it's so important, again, to create a home. I always talk about when I was in the welding industry that I wish there was something like women in manufacturing when I was growing up. And so I can see that same type of thing so that people have these connections that they can bring, something that ties them to the industry. What are the individual benefits that you see, Andrew, and how can this help organizations by them getting their younger employees, encouraging their younger employees to get involved in this?
That's what benefit it is for manufacturers to get their employees involved is it shows that buy-in. It shows that the manufacturers as a whole recognizes this organization and how beneficial it can be to the younger generation. Ultimately, having that younger generation and that buy-in is going to help the manufacturing industry as a whole. We want it to remain relevant, remain vibrant, and thrive. And ultimately, that will help the economy, the global economy, as long as manufacturing is thriving. So having more leaders, more organizational leaders encouraging their younger staff to join organizations like this, it'll help. Again, I know retention and culture is a big thing that everyone's talking about, that we've even touched base on a little bit. It helps show their team that, hey, we want you to grow professionally. Here's an organization that you can join that is going to not only hone in on your hard skills, but also your soft skills. You are going to be able to grow professionally. You're going to be conducting tours, getting to show off your facility, leading those tours. So you're going to have a little bit of public speaking under your belt with being almost as your industry tour guide for that facility. And then from just a beneficial standpoint to people that join the organization, there's countless different things that they're going to benefit from. Abby mentioned the lunch and learns that we're doing on soft skills. Once our membership base becomes a little more broader with different departments, we're going to have more departmental specific training. So we'll have HR type trainings. We will have OSHA and safety trainings, all kinds of different trainings that we can offer that may be department specific. In addition to that, just the mentoring piece that's there. So you had mentioned a lot of the boomers are going to be phased out and the next generation is going to be coming in once they start to retire. But what does that look like as a young manufacturer, a 21 or 22-year-old engineer that's just coming out of college and this is their first job? Having those connections that they can lean on to reach out to someone that's been doing their job maybe at a different facility for 20 plus years to ask questions and share best practices is training that you can't put a price on that. That's something that's so valuable and so beneficial to anyone that's coming up in the manufacturing organization.
Yeah. Well, and Abby, you also mentioned it a couple times with the communication between the generations. So you have younger people coming into the generation who are digital natives. They see technology in a whole different way. And you also have your legacy employees who have been there for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. They understand why the company does the things that they do and how they were formed and all of that. So as a young person yourself and a young female who has fallen in love with manufacturing, we need to find a whole lot more of you. But what are you seeing that's helping to bridge that communication gap between those two very distinct groups of people, especially when it comes to technology?
Yeah, no, great. I can share my perspective, but it's one that's still being answered. I don't have the perfect answer for that question yet of how do you capture that knowledge? But Andrew called out this idea of the mentorship program we're starting, taking these younger manufacturers and allowing them to learn from industry veterans. But at the same time, as there's that mentorship happening, there's almost this opportunity to let that mentorship be a two-way street of, hey, our goal is to have these younger manufacturers be paired up with industry veterans, not from the same organizations. And so manufacturing engineer from company A is going to be talking with, a young manufacturer from company A is going to be talking with an industry veteran who's now director of operations at company B, and director of operations at company B might be able to learn a lot more from that younger manufacturer just by building that mentorship relationship of listening to what the needs are, listening to what that person, the questions that young person is asking, hearing what they want to do with their own company and giving advice, almost in that listening to provide counsel from that industry veteran. They're retaining some of that too, of this is what this young person at this other company needs. How can I start to provide that support and that that knowledge to the younger people in my industry, and it goes two ways. So same thing, this younger person, that's what mentorship is for, is to learn from from the generation ahead of you, to learn from someone who's got more knowledge, got more experience, and someone who you can go to with those questions. When it comes to the technology piece, that's when it starts to get a little funky, where maybe this younger manufacturer coming in might have a little bit more of that technologically savvy knowledge. And so maybe the young manufacturer is teaching some GPT skills to the industry veteran, or you
Right.
never know. That's where that kind of that wonky little in between comes into play, because when I look at it, there's something to be gained going up and going down. You can mentor up, or you can also mentor down. It's a two-way street. It's not,
Right.
you're not only gaining something from the industry veteran, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Almost like a reverse mentoring where you also,
Sure.
the more tenured employee is coaching the newer employee, but the newer employee is able to really make the technology accessible in a way that maybe they would understand it from a user standpoint instead
Right.
of just being scary. Because I think, and especially in a post-pandemic world that we live in now, technology for the most part has just gotten almost stupid simple. So there's no reason to be afraid of it anymore, and yet people still are. Andrew, what are you seeing as far as, tell us a little bit about the model that you're basing this on? Because the other thing that I'm thinking is this is such a good program for other cities to also start taking a look at. So what's the foundation that you're building on, kind of some of the stepping stones that you're doing? So if somebody else started thinking, wow, this is a great idea, that they could start to copy that.
Yeah, so we looked at a bunch of different associations that are already out there and tried to look at some of the things that we think are most beneficial to manufacturing. So you had mentioned earlier, Lisa, Women in Manufacturing is a great organization that helps empower the women in the manufacturing industry. And one of the things that they do is they go on plant tours to see other manufacturing facilities. So that's something that we quickly realized this is what we need to offer as well. Not only do we do plant tours during the day, so people that are members of the Young Manufacturers Network can see manufacturing facilities operate in real time, but also holding our manufacturing meetups, which is your business after hour events that are at manufacturing facilities also. And that's where we talked about some of that professional development piece comes in, where we are going to be asking the hosts of these manufacturers to give tours to those in the manufacturing meetups and be a part of that. So really, just as the pillars of what we think for this organization, it's to develop, to mentor, to support, and to serve by giving back to the community. So those are our four foundational pillars that this organization is built on. And lastly, I would just say that we looked at a lot of the other associations that are out there and really cherry picked what we felt is most valuable in the manufacturing space and what could really help groom and grow the young manufacturers of tomorrow, because ultimately that's what it's really about. And just to go back a little bit, when you and Abby were both talking about the bridging the communications gap, there's so much of that's already happening that I would say that the manufacturers don't even realize, essentially, like the intergenerational projects, how many engineers that are 21 and 22 are working closely with the industry veterans on these projects. So they may not look at it as that the gap is being bridged in that cross-functional communication, but it's already happening. And we're just glad that we can be there to kind of bring it to the table and show that, hey, what you guys are looking for, you're already doing, and you may not be already realizing it. That's what I'm most excited about with this organization, is a lot of the stuff that we offer and that our values and mission for the organization, a lot of it is already happening organically. We're just showing everyone that, hey, this is here and this is how you can do it.
When it comes to, so Abby, you had the idea, and then you said it take 4 to 6 months to get from idea to invitation to attract those first 15 people. So what were the things that the two of you worked on to put into place? You started with the idea, and then give me through a step-by-step of where it went to there until you were able to start that first invitation for people to come.
Yeah, for sure. That initial thought came, actually, you mentioned women in manufacturing. The exact words you described of when I was a woman, when I was a female welder, I wish I had WIM. That was the exact words that someone used that sparked this idea of this needs to be a thing. I was at a WIM event and someone said, when I was 22 and working on the line, if I would have had this, my track to career success would have looked a lot differently. And I said, that cannot be true for this generation of manufacturers. And so I said, Andrew, let's kick it off. And he said, let's go. And so we pitched it to our boss. He said, this is great. Let's go. And so with ManTec's support, we've been able to build out this, I guess it was a framework. We knew we wanted to start, and we luckily, as ManTec, we have a great network of manufacturers that we already work with, and I was able to pull in some industry veterans to get their feedback as leaders of organizations that would be funding a membership. But then I was also going to my friends from college and other young people I'd met over the past few months, and I was like, hey guys, what do you think about this idea? And our first step into things was, all right, we want to have a focus group. And so we held a focus group in February of this year. And so leading up to that, so here's a few key things we need to have. We need to have a website. We need to have our we're calling it our advisory board of directors, leadership team, whatever you want to call it. We want to have an advisory board of people in industry who can help give feedback and let us know what we're doing and what we're doing wrong, and launching those pieces slowly but surely. And so during that focus group, we got a lot of feedback on, hey, our 3 key things are develop, mentor, and support, right? But what are we missing? And so the service piece came in. It was always in the forefront of our minds. We want to have a service component, but after that focus group, we added a service chair to our advisory board because we recognized that was a big need and a big thing that young people were interested in doing was giving back to the community. So let's make that a role. And I would say, I feel like I'm not giving a clear timeline, but those key pieces of getting all of the opinions at the table, hold a focus group,
Right.
hold an info session, have a huge networking event at the very beginning, getting input from everyone just to see what people think. That was a big stepping stone for us and really kickstarted the rest of our journey. And so then from there, we want to at least get some members. And so we did a big membership drive, but then post-membership drive, we hosted our first manufacturing meetup. And so these are monthly events. We host their networking events. So like Andrew said, a business after hours where 5:30 to 7:30 on the second Thursday of the month, young people from South Central PA manufacturing companies come together just for a time of networking and connection. And that was our first event that we had in April. And so we launched that and had at least 30 people there. And so it was just another way to continue to bring those in. We had 2 sponsors. It was a very successful first event, but all of those, having that advisory board of people to go to help plan these events, to help outreach to these events, to bring their friends in as well at their respective companies. Developing a solid website, I think, was huge too, and I feel like it's a given, but having that space where people jump to, you want that to be clear. You want your mission to be clear on there, and that is what's going to draw people in. Is a clear message, clear mission, and a clear idea of, hey, what do I get as a member of the Young Manufacturers Network? And then, of course, just having a great team. I mentioned the advisory board, but bringing people on that are excited about manufacturing. I believe it's an 8-person advisory board team, and everyone there wants to be there. Everyone there loves manufacturing, and they want to see this group grow. They want to see the manufacturing industry grow. And so choosing folks to come alongside you who back the mission of your organization is huge. It's the same thing as having a good culture at a company. Have a good culture for an organization like this to really get that buy-in from the outside world, if you will. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Kind of a roundabout way to get there, but that's kind of where I'm at.
And Andrew, what about you? Where do you see this program going from here?
So what I would like to see from the Young Manufacturers Network is basically just expansion of membership and reach, more industry collaboration and partners. We want to make this organization thrive, that all of the other MEP centers across the US reach out to us, and Abby and I can help them get started so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is something that I think just the impact that this organization can have on manufacturing as a whole is just tremendous. We're essentially preparing young manufacturers for future challenges that they have, and to basically make the manufacturing industry just more innovative, more just inclusivity than what it already has, and just ultimately be a sustainable sector. Manufacturing as a whole is great, but as it constantly changes. If you look at manufacturing from 100 years ago to now, it's completely different. So what's that going to look like 100 years from now moving forward? So really, this organization, I don't really think there's a ceiling on it. I think it can just keep going up, and there isn't any reason why other manufacturers that out there aren't going to mirror this. There are manufacturers that we leaned upon early that have these type of organizations within just their specific organization, an in-house young manufacturers network. So we did tap into their resources to see what works for them. And they love the organization. They have their own internal culture committee that plans events and things of that sort. I would just say sky's the limit for this type of organization.
Wow. So I know time really flies when you're having fun. So as we get to the end of our time together, if you were to give a piece of helpful advice to somebody listening to there, again, either on the importance of doing this for your community or to the importance of getting your organization involved in a project like the Young Manufacturers Network, Abby, what would you say?
Yeah, I'm going to use a piece of advice that I heard a little over a year ago. I once heard the piece of advice of your next yes does not have to be your final yes. And so I would couple that with just try it. Just say yes, give it a shot. That's really what Andrew and I did with this group is we heard a need. We said, yes, let's go with this. Let's make it a thing. Let's see if we can get it off the ground. And so the feedback we've gotten has been great. And so I recognize that while this may be a yes for now, and I pray that it's a yes for the future to come, I recognize that my next yes doesn't have to be my final yes. And as I continue to bring people on, and as the Young Manufacturers Network continues to grow, if someone is looking to do something similar, creating a space for a certain demographic in the manufacturing industry or in any industry at all, just say yes. Give it a shot. Bring people in, allow them to come in, and just know that by taking that first step, by saying that first yes, there's going to be good things to come. People are going to rally around you, whether you know it or not. And so allow that to happen. So let your next yes not be your final yes, but just start saying yes.
Awesome. And Andrew, what about you?
I would say, similar to what Abby said, stay curious. Just really embrace continuous learning. The manufacturing industry as a whole is constantly evolving. So ask questions, stay curious, leverage networking opportunities that you have, just understand technology as it's constantly and rapidly evolving. And yeah, don't be scared. Don't shy away. Always ask questions. And there is no such thing as a bad question. Everyone's heard that at least probably 10 times in their life. So yeah, stay curious and just get it done.
And it also seems that for people listening to the show, starting with your local MEP, if you have one by you, may be a really good idea for a partnership because maybe they haven't thought about that. They have other groups within their MEP. The young professionals is one they haven't gotten to yet. So just to start to have those conversations and encourage these partnerships could be a win for all.
Yeah, and there should be an MEP in every state and Puerto Rico. So if you haven't found your local MEP, please just Google MEP and your state or reach out to Andrew and I am more than happy to connect any manufacturer or anyone interested in learning more about the MEP network with your local MEP director. So happy to do that, but just let us know.
And I will put that in the show notes too. So, well, Abby and Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah,
thank you, Lisa.
So
this was
Lisa.
awesome. Really appreciate your time.
Yes,
Right.
thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I'm Lisa Ryan, and this is the Manufacturers Network Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Manufacturers Network Podcast. Do me a favor and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can grow this network and connect more fantastic folks just like you. You can either send your buddies to the website at manufacturers-network.com or share the Manufacturers Network podcast on your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you and your industry friends hang out. The bigger and faster we grow the network, the stronger and deeper the community we'll all have. Thanks again, and I appreciate you.